Welcome, everyone, to the Art of Innovation. I am Luke Tannen, Executive Director of Chicago Innovation, and I am here with Chicago Innovation co-founder, Tom Kaczmarski.
Hi, everybody. Hey, it's good afternoon. And it's as always, it's so exciting to have you join us today for this wonderful event. You know, today's event is all about exploring what business leaders can gain and the lens that they can see through differently from artists to really be able to generate new ideas.
Indeed, experiencing the world of art makes you think totally differently about things. For example, here is something that one of my 4-year-olds just made for me yesterday. There you go. Now, I have no idea what it is, but it sure makes me think very open-mindedly about what people can create. Now, today's event is just one of many events and programs run by Chicago Innovation, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary year. And there are over 36,000 people in our Chicago Innovation community. And while most of us are not artists, there's so much that we can all gain by working with and learning from them.
Exactly right, Luke. You know, today's speakers possess not only creative brilliance, but also they've had some great expertise and have had a wonderful track record of building businesses, creating new jobs, and really providing positive impact and affecting positive change in their communities.
Yep, that's right, Tom. And before we jump into the discussion, I want to first thank all of our Chicago Innovation sponsors who are here to support us today and all of the things that we do year round. And that starts with our diamond sponsors, SMS Assist, Wintrust, Accenture, and Walgreens. Gold sponsors, Comcast Business and Exelon. Silver sponsor, Vetter Price. Bronze sponsors, Energy BBDO, Crown Castle, Elkay, Thompson Coburn, Granger, Ramsey Innovations, Groupon, and Aero Digital Labs. And then also our media partners, Intersection, Clear Channel Outdoor, WBBM News Radio, NBC Chicago, and Crane's Chicago Business. Now, a message to the audience. Keep an eye out for some polling questions so we can learn more about all of you during the presentation. And if you have a question for the panel, please send us your question via the Zoom Q&A because we'll spend the last 15 minutes or so addressing them.
And now what we'd like to do is hand it over to our moderator, our good friend, Howard Tallman. Howard, you know, is one of a kind. Well, you already know that already. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's the author of many books. He's an active angel investor. He's the former executive director of the Kaplan Institute at Illinois Tech, the former CEO of 1871. I declare that he is the #1 largest art collector in the city of Chicago and is a director of Snapsheet and Keeper Security and Debit and others. And most importantly, is on our board, Chicago Innovation. Please welcome Howard Tallman.
Thank you, Tom. I'm going to not try to respond to that Rorschach test that Luke put up, but it was definitely looked like a few butterflies to me. So I'm excited to be here. We got a great panel. This is our second year of doing the Art of Innovation. And with us are 3 really good friends and people that I'm excited to have them share their views with all of you. So let me introduce them very quickly. Kelly Leonard, who's the Executive Director of Insights and Applied Improvisation at Second City. Kelly has led the theatrical operations there for years and worked with Tina Fey and Stephen Colbert and Amy Poehler, Steve Carell, and is also the author of a great book in terms of collaboration, and it's called Yes and it's lessons from Second City. So I highly recommend that. So Kelly, welcome. Next is Jackie Taylor. Jackie is the founder and CEO of the Black Ensemble Theater. She's written and directed and produced more than 100 plays and musical biographies. I've seen at least all the musical ones, I think. Worked with Sidney Poitier and Spike Lee, Ice Cube, and is really a prominent force in what's going on in the city in terms of theater. So Jackie, welcome as well. And lastly is Alex Pizos, and Alex is the president and CEO of CineStage, Chicago's film studios, which is the biggest film studio now operation outside of Hollywood, used by more than 50 different film and TV shows. I think all the Chicago shows are there now, and a lot of movies. And he's going to tell us, in addition to what's going on with the stages, something that is really an exciting program about internship for kids in the city to get into theater. So Alex, welcome as well. And we're going to kick this off with just a simple question, because we're focusing on art. So let's take a minute and just go around the horn and ask you guys to share with us what you would say is your favorite piece of art. So anybody, feel free to start.
I'll start. The most profound piece of art I've experienced in the last year or so is a book by Robert McFarlane called The Lost Words. And essentially the story behind it is pretty interesting. There was a recent edition of the Oxford Junior Dictionary, and it was published, and 40 common words have been dropped, like acorn and bluebell, dandelion. And so McFarlane wanted to bring these words back. So he worked with an artist, Jackie Morris, and they created poems about each of these words to sort of reimagine them back into the world. And it's just such a sort of profound book for me, given everything that we've gone through, and all the various tragedies and traumas that we've all gone through. This is really a sort of a powerful piece of art.
Well, that's great. You know, it's really interesting that you say that, because I was just making a list of all of the things in our lives that have like disappeared. Long distance has disappeared, you know, cloth diapers, postcards, you know, notary publics. And so, so, you know, the language is clearly one of these things where, between abbreviations and everything else that's going on, it's a different world. And if you love language, it's a very challenging world. So Alex?
For me, it was, believe, as a young kid, my parents, we watched the movie Zorba the Greek. And that movie, till this day, you know, resonates to me as just a beautiful piece of art. Mainly, it's because that movie, when you really watch it, talks about live life, love, work hard. And it's, with me, it represented a lot of my family. I'd go to Greece and visit my uncles, and you'd meet these people, and they would just, it was all about loving each other and dancing and eating and drinking, and not just Friday or Saturday night. It was every night of the week. And, you know, I still look at life, and, you know, life is crazy, and it gets crazier every day as we get older, but sometimes you got to sit back and just eat, drink, and love. And, you know, and your soul gets so much more filled that way. And it's just that simple sometimes. And that's, well, my favorite piece.
Right. And Jackie?
Well, my favorite piece is an old school piece, and it's a film, and it's called Cooley High. And it's a masterpiece. And I'm not saying that because I was in it. I'm saying it because the story was such a beautiful story at that time. And it negated the violence within the community. And it showed a side of African Americans that has been not dealt with by the film industry, especially in 1976, when that film was made. So the story is wonderful. And if you ever get a chance, just check it out.
So it's Cooley High, right? Cooley High, because I'm not sure everybody heard you at the beginning, but okay, great. All right, so look, you heard Paul mention that we're going to use some polling technology. So let's go to the first poll, which is a quick question. And we've got 100 or 200 people on with us, so we'll take about 30 seconds to do this. But the first question is whether you consider creativity to be essential to your job. And I guess you could expand it to be your company as well. But take a minute and just click, I think, on yes or no, and then we'll get the results and we'll move on. We've got a couple of these. One I'm really, really excited about. And in the meantime, we're going to, you know, one of the things that Tom said that was interesting was talking about artists, but, you know, I think we want to focus on creatives, which is a lot broader category. And, you know, you can be creative in building a business, you can be creative in a lot of different respects. So, and interestingly enough, notwithstanding, that Chicago is a physical art town, you heard about movies, you heard about books, and it just goes to show you how broad the field is. All right, so we're done, I think, with poll number 1, and 100% of the people who have answered so far said that they do consider creativity to be essential to their job. So let me move from there. And Kelly and I have had this conversation like a zillion times before, but Kelly, people think of and often sort of commingle innovation, which we're talking about, and invention and creativity. And I know that you feel pretty strongly that there's a big difference. So share with us for a minute sort of your take on the difference.
Yeah, so we were talking about this as a group this year because a lot of times our clients will come to us and they ask for something like storytelling or creativity or innovation. And what we realize is different people mean different things with all those words. And so creativity and innovation.
Let me just interrupt. Is that like infrastructure, would you say?
Yeah, like infrastructure, exactly. There's alternative facts with these words, so to speak. But creativity is about initiating ways to discover original ideas. And innovation takes those ideas and turns them into something useful or valuable, a product, a project, a system, that sort of thing. And in our world, what we understand is they're linked, but you can have creativity without innovation, but you cannot have innovation without creativity. And that's really important because a lot of people have this myth of like, you've got to be born with it. And it's like, it is not true. We are all creative as children and we get it drummed out of us through education and workplaces. And we can reclaim that. We can reclaim the creativity. Innovation's harder. It's harder to take all those ideas and turn them into something. And then Howard, I think you have a great way of sort of moving that then to entrepreneurship, which is yet another sort of step in that.
Yeah, I always say that people confuse also invention, the idea of bringing something into existence, with innovation. Invention is pretty risky. It's pretty hard. It's pretty costly. But, I think of innovation as a scientific process of just getting a little better every single day. And God knows that's something you want to teach your kids. That's something you want to put into your life every day of your life, because iteration and just moving the ball forward a little bit is very, very critical. So I think that understanding that, and when you talk to companies, the word innovation is scary. It's they prefer tradition and they prefer things like that. But the truth is that nobody is going to survive without radically changing. And especially, boy, have we had a wake up call in the last year. And I think I want to ask Jackie. One of the things I think that's come out of the last year, because we were forced to catch a breath and take a little time, is just how important art has been and how it's going to continue to be in our lives, because boy, we missed it. So Jackie, give me your thoughts on that.
Well, art is the essence of the soul. It does something that nothing else does, in terms of feeding your senses, your emotions, your sense of self. It makes you aware of the world. It makes you aware of how you fit and who you are. And now that we can't do it the way that we would like to do it, we're seeing how much it means in our lives, and we're trying everything possible to get back, especially in theater, because we were the first to be closed and we're going to be the last to be open, it looks like. But it's the essence of who we are.
Well, and I that's great. And I think also that the lesson is, we think of artists as locked in their little rooms in their studios creating individually, but the truth is, the other message is, none of this happens by itself. I mean, that you need it to have these shared experiences. And Alex, I mean, you have the privilege every single day of seeing these stories come to life, and probably better than anybody understands what it takes in terms of a team to really put these things together. So give us your thoughts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, you know, when you're dealing with art departments and set deck departments and construction departments, and to see, you know, all these people, you know, a lot of these shows, you got 500 to 600 people per show working behind the scenes to build these sets and write these scripts. And it's been rough too. I mean, you know, we shut down in March. Luckily, we were able to come back early on in July with Fargo. But it definitely, I mean, you know, I noticed that, you know, they don't go into the neighborhoods as much as they used to. They're not doing location shooting like they used to. And I've had conversations with some neighbors who had businesses saying, hey, you know what? I hear they're filming, but they're not ordering the pizzas from here, or they're not ordering the burrito. You know, a lot of these different neighborhoods, when these shows go on location and film, they spend so much money in that neighborhood they're filming. And you know, it's changed, you know, so now the shows are kind of building more sets in the stages because of, you know, what we went through. And it definitely has changed a lot with that, with the productions, you know, the creativity, definitely, you know, it's a big difference.
I'll tell you, food, I mean, Chicago is an arts town, it's a music town, but it's a big food town. And it's scary what's going on with food. I mean, to think that this shortening the school day because they don't want to serve meals in the schools. The truth is breakfast and lunch in the schools are what keeps some of these kids alive and thinking. You know, we know that if you don't have a good breakfast, I mean, this was beaten into our heads by everybody, including McDonald's, I guess. But if you don't have a good breakfast and get your brain working, you know, you can forget about school for the rest of the day. So, all right. So I want to ask another sort of poll question, and this is my favorite because, you know, I think it's bad enough that we do, you know, New Year's resolutions, but my question goes like this. Over the last year, did you try to learn a new skill, whether it was artistic or, you know, just being a better anything? And then part two is, did you do it? I know we all set out and had great plans. I mean, everybody was going to, you know, avoid gaining the pandemic 15, and people were going to get their novels written and do other things. So I'm just curious as to how many people sort of set out to do something. And of course, we didn't know how long this was going to be, but it turned out to be a substantial period of time. And then did you do it, or are you still sort of thinking about getting it done? So take a minute and share that with us and let us know what sort of the world told us. The other thing is, Jackie, you mentioned this, and we'll, after we do the poll, that's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting. I think that we'll have to say, you know, we'll have to figure out a way to send a follow-up in another 6 months. You know, one of the amazing things is I think in getting back to business, we're going to have to take it in not baby steps, but pretty slow to really figure out what we know changed and then what we don't really realize changed. And I think that that's going to be a huge thing. And I want to move, because Jackie mentioned this, I mean, theater got hit as bad as anything. I think maybe sports also in many respects. There were some good things in a sense. If you could attend virtually, I know different organizations have said some of the online events and educational programs they've done, they've had actually better attendance. But in terms of the physical, you know, experience of being in a theater and being live, so hard. So Jackie, how are you guys thinking about what you're going to do and how to recreate that whole experience?
Yes, Lord have mercy. What a question. We right now what we're doing is all online. You cannot create a live performance through a screen. It's
just TV. It's just watching, right?
It hasn't been invented yet. So how we're going to bounce back is the question, and that's going to be slowly, because just as much as it's difficult to create through a different kind of medium, people aren't going to just run to the theater. We're in shock right now. And we're going to have to come out of shock. And the theaters are going to have to find a creative way to, first of all, let people know that they will be safe, create a product that is not going to pay for itself, because you're not going to get the butts in the seats at the initial, whenever this thing opens up. And we've learned that we do have the light at the end of the tunnel is now we have several new earned revenue streams that we didn't have before, that we didn't think about.
Right.
Our educational programs, we started marketing them nationally, and it's working.
Sure.
We never thought about that aspect of it before. We're going to film our plays, but not like a play. We're going to film it thinking about, okay, how can we register this on a screen also? Because that's another revenue stream. So yeah, that's a hard question, and we're all giving it a lot of thought.
Well, I think the other thing that, when you talk about butts and seats, I mean, and paying for itself, I mean, the even harder issue is so many arts organizations are based on annual subscriptions and sort of front end loaded. I mean, it's those subscriptions on an annual basis that give you the funding to create the productions in the course of the year. So I know that all kinds of organizations are looking at this. Kelly, Jackie raised this issue of education and virtual education. You guys have been doing an enormous amount. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing that we could actually first pivot to. When we shut down the theaters, we immediately attempted to turn every class online, and we had about 90% retention, which was amazing. And then the thing in the training center that's been interesting is, as far as new students go, we're realizing that our worldwide audience, which is, we have people from 60, 70 countries maybe at this point taking classes with us. And they love the shorter engagements. So we created a thing called an escape. And it's just 4 weeks, and people come and then they sign up again. And it's just like, you have to sort of, it's like when you decide what time to put your show on, we had so many years to figure that out. And we had like weeks to figure out, how this might work. And then the thing that's really boomed is our virtual corporate learning. And that's because companies finally now, well, let me put it this way. I was actually working on a think piece, and the think piece is live learning better than virtual learning? That's the wrong question. There are attributes to both that we just didn't know until we got into the space. And one of the attributes of virtual is finally companies can be fully accessible in their learning to their entire workforce. So suddenly now we're doing leadership conferences for 10,000 people at the same time.
So it scales because there's no incremental cost.
There's no hotel, there's no travel, no lodging. And then the other thing that we can do in this medium is, while yes, the in-person improv training is amazing, we really can't use a lot of other content. So we now have the features on Zoom where we can use drawing boards and we can show videos. And there's we have media now that can fill these areas. So there's more ways to punctuate your point of view and get it across in different kinds of, and audio, oral stuff, more podcast editions. So,
and also clearly that just the time shifting capability has been amazing, because it lets people not be constrained to a 9-to-5 world. I mean, in so many ways. And by the way, that's how you can become, international, because you're not bound by that. But talking about learning and training, Alex, tell us about, I mentioned this at the beginning, but I'm really excited because, one of the things we talk about all the time is how are we going to get, brown and black kids in particular into tech, into, which we did at Kaplan. How are we going to get them into the unions? How are we going to get them into entertainment? It's great to be a jock. It's great to be a musician, but I love what you're doing with CineCares. So will you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So, we started CineCares approximately 7 years ago. My uncle Nick, who started CineSpace, when he passed, I wanted to do something to kind of keep his legacy going and what he believed in. And, I brought in Sheila Brown, who's the director of CineCares. And the main thing was the workforce. You had this great projects going on in North Lawndale and Little Village, and the workforce was not representing the neighborhood. So we sat down and said, listen, it's about jobs, jobs, jobs. So we started directly working with just West Side and South Side underserved communities, where we take high school, you have to have a high school diploma, graduate high school, and then there's an internship program. So we partnered with Amazon and Netflix and NBC and Showtime and HBO and said, listen, we have this program that we want to take 15 to 20 kids in every cohort. We want to place them on your shows to do hair and makeup, set deck, lighting, grip. And after that, if they still have if they still are interested in the business, then CineSpace wants to underwrite the $6,000 fee to get into the union, get whatever tools these students need, and get them in the union.
Amazing.
It's amazing. And what's happened is over 90% of the students now are working in the union. So these are high paying jobs with insurance, with benefits. And it's really just been the perfect hurricane. I tell people, there was Chicago that needed more workforce in the film industry. You had content creation growing like crazy. So what better place than to grab high school students that don't want to go to college from underserved communities that most people don't understand the film industry. It's a blue collar job. Besides the producer's director and maybe 2-3 actors, it's a blue collar job. You're building sets. I mean, you're working. It's construction jobs, and it's taken off. And the good news is, and it's public now, the Oscars have reached out to Sheila last week, and the Academy wants to partner with CineCares and work directly with us. With Oscar winners would come here. So an Oscar winner in hair and makeup, an Oscar winner in acting, and actually talk to the kids and discuss to them and educate them. And we're really proud. I mean, I could talk about this forever, but I talked to some studios saying, hey, what are you guys doing for underserved communities? They said, oh, well, we do this great day. We take a bus and we bring them in and they go on the set of Friends and we give them a bunch of bags of stuff and have a lunch and send them home. I said, so you just showed them what they can't get. You didn't show them what they can get. I said, so I'm sitting here now, I'm helping a lot of the studios because they wanted to know how it worked out. And you got to work with the unions. And we had a great, IATSE union here was open armed, understood what we needed to do. And it's happening. And it's really the most exciting thing that's happening at CineSpace is the internship program.
Yeah, this is such a remarkable turnaround, because I remember when you literally started, and you had to import virtually everything. I mean, catering, film equipment. I mean, Chicago had nothing.
Nothing.
And I mean, you've really put us on the map in a very impressive way. And this program is just tremendously exciting. And the obvious, the ability to expand it to other parts of the country is huge too. So I noticed something pop up, and I'm just going to ask, Hetty Ratner asked in the chat, could you, Alex, help with some of these crews and some of the expertise you guys have, and with Sheila and her teams, help Jackie in this space of how are we going to film a lot of these live productions and things like that. I mean, it would be really interesting to see if that could become a resource, because one of the things small production companies and live theater companies are not going to do is invest in all this equipment and use it like once in a blue moon. But that's something that you guys could do, and you could have little SWAT teams and they could go around and capture these things. It'd be a really fun thing to do. So.
It would be.
All right. So anyway, let me get to one more sort of general question. I'm going to start this with Kelly, but everything we've discussed really makes it clear that these are collaborative arts. These are collaborative businesses. You can't do anything by yourself these days. But in business, I don't know that they get it, so far. I think it's still sort of the Lone Ranger. I mean, Microsoft, finally got rid of stack rankings, which basically just pitted employees against each other. And, this idea of team is so important. And so, Kelly, I know you you present, innovation to these companies and creativity. What do you do about just the more general issue of making it clear that they need to have a better understanding of how valuable team is within the context of all of these operations?
I was literally just writing about this today. So we sell a lot of teamwork and collaboration workshops. And in our language, we call it ensemble. We have ensembles, and there's a reason for that, because there's all these rules about when you enter the ensemble and then you leave the ensemble, but the ensemble is still there and is always there. I think more businesses are getting this, because a ton of at least are coming to us, and that it was always a myth. No one does anything alone. And the incredible thing about making theater and putting on shows or making films is you're basically a startup like 10 times a year. You have to get everyone together and do this thing, and then they disband, and then you get other people together. And that's an incredible skill to have. It requires leadership. It requires cooperation and support. You have to reach outside your organization. So this idea of skills building for the work you're actually doing. I always found it amazing that, in business school, they were not teaching people how to sell, which is like the one thing you need to do in business.
Totally.
And for this sort of things, like, you have to learn how to work together as a group, because we're not wired well to do that. We're wired to like basically work with our tribes who look like us and sound like us, and then be afraid for something that's going to trip us up. And the world is different now. And so we have to practice those skills and then apply them. And it's like, you can't go to the gym once and you're done. This is like something that you have to keep working. It's a lifelong thing. It's growth mindset, Carol Dweck's work. It's psychological safety, Amy Edmondson. And it's all really a thing that stands at the center of the world of art.
Well, and it's also, this is a good sort of transition to, Jackie, the whole theory of the Black Ensemble Theater was to address sort of racism across the board in terms of all kinds of different areas. And team is another one of these aspects. When you bring together diverse populations, especially in the context of performance and things, I think that's a vehicle. But tell us how you've seen the arts and basically the use of the arts to start to address some of these concerns.
Well, I started Black Ensemble in 1976 with the mission to eradicate racism and its devastating effects on society. So you can imagine in 1976 saying that kind of mission, the kind of response and reactions that I got. But one of the most transformative art forms is theater, dance, film, music. These things can reach across barriers. It can reach across colors. It can change your view and your mind. The isms, racism, sexism, ageism, are all based on a lack of knowledge, education, respect, understanding, because we have created these bubbles. But the arts breaks through those things, and they educate in a way that is enlightening, informative, and fun. And many times you don't know you're learning. You don't know you're changing until it happens. And you say, wow, I never thought about it that way before.
Yeah, some, as they say in Wicked, some bridges you don't know you've crossed until you've crossed them.
That's right.
So let's do one more poll question, and then we will finish up with some questions from the audience. So the next poll question is, and I want to preface this by saying that there's a good new book about the big tech companies and looking to the future. And one of the chapters of this book suggests that all the tech companies should hire at least one science fiction writer on their staff to dream up the craziest, goofiest scenarios for the misuse of all their technology because that's as likely to happen as anything that they think is going to happen on the good side. And at least it would get them thinking about it. So the question for the poll is, within your organizations, do you have creatives? Do you have artists on staff in some role or some set of roles in order to help you make sure that you're exposing people within the organization to different lines of thinking and to different tools and resources? Because there's just no question that left brain, right brain is a critical sort of distinction, and something that every organization needs to be looking at a lot more. So the question is, do you have artists on your staff? I mean, one of the interesting things is, again, it could be designers, it could be literally, physical artists, it could be writers, musicians. One of the things I would add to your list, Jackie, in terms of causes is just exposure, and the idea that people get exposed to new talents and different kinds of things is really the way that those barriers get broken down. So all right, that's pretty interesting. About a 50-50 split. That's very interesting. Good. All right, so let me then turn to one more question, which is basically in terms of what's going on going forward. What couple of concrete steps would each of you suggest for the audience? We're coming out of it, we hope. Things are getting better. I hope by the end of the summer, we'll be pretty much free of distance requirements. I don't know if I would say that about masks, and obviously it depends on that we can't have a resurgence of the virus or the variants. But what are the couple of first steps that each of you are taking in order to sort of get the ball rolling again? So let me start with Alex.
Yeah, well, the testing was obviously the first thing that was started here at CineSpace, and hiring a company like Surf Pro that comes in and wipes and cleans every day, putting up the plastic around the desks, that was all done, and it's working here so far. I mean, the testing here is almost every day, and there are people that are positive, but it definitely has been getting less and less since we started up in July. People, I think, are getting a little bit more comfortable, and with vaccinations, a lot of people, I think, are getting vaccinated here on the lot, not here on the lot, but at the local areas where they can. And I think it's going to help. I mean, in our business, we're kind of, because content right now is just, those 6 months we were shut down, those writer rooms were empty, the stages were empty. So they're so backed up with, to make more content. I think they're trying everything they can. And Jim Giannopoulos, the president of, now he's the president of Paramount, broke it down to me once. He said, when Alex was 10 years old, he watched Dukes of Hazzard every Friday night for 10 months, in 1978. He says, well, Alex in 2021 watches Dukes of Hazzard in 2 days. So it's the demand now, and so that's kind of where we're headed, is just kind of, keep on testing, keep on making the place as safe as you can, and hopefully just, going down the positive path of more shows.
Okay. Jackie?
Same thing. You have to, we're looking at our systems. We're looking at our the air, and we're looking at many things that we are changing, so that when the audience walks in, they feel secure. They know they're secure.
Right.
We're not going to open with whatever they say. We're going to open with a small amount of people, and we'll build from there. Because like I said before, it's going to take time. People have to get over their fears, but for us, we're going to do a strong marketing effort in that area, because we gotta let the people know that when you come, you are going to be safe.
Good. Kelly?
So all that stuff, they're working downstairs right now to transform the dressing room, so everyone has their own pod. We've done the ventilation. But here's the interesting thing for me. The leadership team at Second City, there's like maybe 6 of us right now. We started coming back to the office 3 weeks ago. I just in observing our behavior where we don't have to wear our masks if we're in our office with our doors closed. Some people who've had it or are vaccinated feel more comfortable without their mask. I was talking to my team. I'm like, we need to develop a workshop for coming back, because here's a thing that's ineffective. All of us going to the one big room and having a meeting with our masks on is less effective than us just staying in our office and seeing our faces. However, the collisions that you make in the hallways with your masks on, oh my God, I missed those incredibly. And they are business changers, because suddenly you're like, I've got this idea at this moment. Can you build upon it? Absolutely great.
It's the water cooler. It's the synergy. Yes. It's absolutely collision.
Yeah, I don't think great ideas happen in conference rooms. They happen in hallways. Yeah. And so taking advantage of that. So I think there's all these new norms that we're starting to figure out, because we're back in a small way, that we're going to want to be able to say to companies, you need to practice this stuff with your people, because it's different now. Communication was always bad. It's just like it's on steroids at this point.
Okay. All right, good. Well, I think we're ready to switch over, Paul. So would you give us a couple of questions from the audience? I think we're right on time.
Yeah, Howard, we've got a few that have come in here. And so the first one, this is from Jackie, and she says the arts generate over $3 billion in revenue here in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Yet Chicago's investments in the arts is smaller proportionally than many other cities. What can we do to come together to change the city's investment strategies?
Well, Jackie, go ahead. Jackie?
Talk, communicate, let people know, call the politicians, call the funders, research, let your thoughts be known. That it's important and it's vital and it's necessary. Communication is the key.
Okay, good. I think Alex would say just buy some more buildings and build some more stages. But what else, Alex?
No, yeah, and marketing too. You know, it's got to be marketed more. You know, and the question's right and Jackie's right. I mean, people got to talk about it more, and it's a real business. And that $3 billion number, that's just the immediate impact. If you actually did the rounding number, it's probably 12 billion. I mean, and we are always, you know, second base on, you know, the arts are always looked at as second fiddle. So I think it's getting more marketing and getting the politicians, the mayors, the governors, you know, making sure that, and the big corporate sponsors, you know, coming and believing and, you know, making your voice heard.
I remember Lou Raisin used to always say that, you know, the catchment area for a play like Wicked or Hamilton was hundreds and hundreds of miles, and people would come in and they'd stay overnight and they would eat at the restaurants, and the amplified effect on the economy was enormous. I mean, it was just, you know, it's clearly an important investment. And by the way, I mean, it's equally important to get over the bad messaging that we've had for the last year or two in terms of people who are concerned about what's going on in the city from the standpoint of crime and some of these other considerations, which is not good news. I know the city is trying to figure out how to start a whole new marketing campaign, and hopefully arts will be front and center in terms of that whole situation. Yeah. Kelly, you want to add anything to that, or should we go on to the next question?
No, let me add this.
Okay.
The arts and the
no, the answer, you should have said, yes, let me add this.
Yes, let me add
this.
Yes, and let me add this. The arts and entertainment sector needs to hire the lobbyists for the restaurant industry, because the restaurant industry was like the Tribune screaming to open restaurants that are like seat 60 people when we have like 10,000 seat venues that they won't put anyone in. It's ridiculous. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So we got to find out what they're doing and copy it and do it for ourselves.
Yeah.
Great. Well, one of the things they're doing is making it clear that, you know, the media focused on taking pictures of the seating in the restaurants. The truth was that the workforce was in the kitchen. They never looked in the kitchen, but they did a really good job of explaining that those were the beneficiaries. You know, that was a whole nother population of essential workers in the food industry. And I think they brought that home. But look, it's the exact same thing as Alex said. A lot of these jobs are, to the extent that they're repetitive and union jobs, they're very attractive jobs. Okay, Paul, next question.
Here is a high-tech question. It comes from Paul, and he asks, what is your opinion on NFTs and their effect on art, audio, video, and other forms of creative work?
Well, look, I think, and I don't know if everybody understands, NFT is basically non-fungible token, and it's just a thing. It's a digital thing, and it's become an asset class. And what's going to flow out of that, we really don't know. For my 2 cents, to the extent that people are paying these crazy prices for some of these things, using cryptocurrencies, which are themselves inflated, crazy currencies. It's not clear to me who's going to be on the merry-go-round or what share will be left when the craziness stops. So, but it's definitely going to be, and in a way, I would tell you that it reminds me of how GoFundMe campaigns have exploded. GoFundMe now is a way, Indiegogo and Kickstarter long ago were ways of getting funding, Kickstarter in particular, for creative activities. That could be a play, that could be an arts activity, it could be any number of things. Now we've got more channels. NFTs may be another way. People may sell, the vehicle that the NFT represents is the ability to sell forward-looking profits. And so there'll be a playwright. Jackie will say, I'm going to sell the rights to the next, 3 plays that I write, but I need funding in order to do that. So I'm going to sell these little tokens to an audience of 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 donors. And it may be that that is the way that we get around some of these issues these days about how we fund arts organizations. Anybody else want to jump into that? It's a nasty, ugly situation. So I don't know.
I just figured out what blockchain is like last week. So.
All right. Well, listen, blockchain, NFTs wouldn't exist without blockchain, frankly. Okay. Next question, Paul.
All right. This comes from Lynn, and she is asking what capacity of the audiences to return to live performances would be needed to go beyond break even?
Jackie, I don't know if you have a mathematical answer for that.
It really depends on the theater. It depends on the budget. There's no mathematical equation that will fit all theaters. It really depends. Some theaters are only 30 seats. Some are 50. Some are 300, like Black Ensemble. So, or some are 1,200. It really depends.
Okay.
We could probably, I think we estimated we'd make money in our main stage with 100, and it's a little under 300 right now. But we have all these other theaters, right? We're in an 80,000 square foot venue that's, being used very sparsely. So it's sort of stage by stage, but do
you guys treat the theater that you do on ships as a separate line of activity?
We lump that in like with our touring and our theatrical shows that we do. Yeah. So that's anything outside the building that we're doing live shows. So really the corporate work is profitable. That's and the training that we're doing, and that's because we're able to deliver them virtually. And we're hoping to get back up in May. That was our goal. It's day by day at this point. And, the union's the Actors Equity Union appears to be a bit behind a lot of the others in terms of figuring out how to do this safely and right.
I was telling Alex, we have a company that's doing testing, and the unions these are on theatrical stages and movie production companies in Hollywood. And the union has been the prime mover in terms of requiring testing on a really aggressive basis, probably, for the good of their members.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Paul, another question?
Yeah, this is a question for Alex. It comes from Keith. He has, he's saying, I have a son in his first year studying film. With streaming coming to the forefront, partially due to COVID, what are some things he should have in mind right now as he enters this arena?
Well, the good news is, at least in Chicago historically, you know, before kind of the last 5-6 years, you know, you'd go to film school here and you'd leave and go to LA or New York. What we're seeing a lot from these schools like DePaul, Columbia, Flash, they're all coming back. You know, you got West Coast and East Coast students coming back to Chicago. So in order for it depends what he wants to do. If he wants to be a writer, he should be writing. You know, Steven Spielberg said it best. Read something when you want to be somebody wants to shoot film, you should always have a camera in your hand and filming a canary from the person walking down the street. That's the practice. You know, going to the schools is great and learning a lot of stuff at the DePauls and the Northwesterns. But going out there and doing it on your own and training yourself and writing scripts or filming stuff is really my advice to him. When I spoke once at a DePaul graduation, I said, well, you guys, you know, I said, you guys all probably have your little business cards that says director and producer. I said, rip them up. I said, because your first job's going to be learn how to make a really good cup of coffee. I said, because, and I told the parents, I feel bad. I said, don't feel bad. You blew $200,000 on education. So,
well, you know, I mean, look, Kelly and I had this discussion about entrepreneurship. You know, the truth is you have to tell your kid that they better love it because it's hard and bumpy and everything else. But the other thing is, I think it's genetic. I think you can't teach somebody to be in any of these professions. It has to be a passion that they have. You can teach them all to be better. You can teach them tricks of the trade. You can teach them skills. You can teach them a lot of different things. But the passion has to be there because it's so hard to get started that, you know, you just have to want it more than anybody else. It's the one, you know, the one who cares the most is the one who wins.
Yep.
All right, Paul, one more question and then we'll wrap it up.
All right, Diego wants to know, have you seen more collaboration between corporations and artists over the past year? And looking forward, do you anticipate to see even more collaboration?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, like I said, our corporate work is booming. And I think that's in part generational with the younger people who are leading companies, the different generations in the workplace needing to sort of address those issues and recognizing there's all this great science, the behavioral science and neuroscience around the power of storytelling, and that great leaders need to be able to authentically tell their story and the buildings of teams, as we've talked about. So I think there's just the respect ratio is, I mean, we're, you know, 10 years ago, Second City's not doing work at Harvard, Stanford, and the University of Chicago. We would have been laughed off the campus. And now we're in all three. Doing a constant level of work. So I'm very bullish on this as a trajectory of working more closely together.
You know, I would say, I would take just the opposite tact because I would think in the last year, sadly, that the whole pandemic has basically frozen a tremendous amount of philanthropic gestures toward the arts. And in part,
philanthropy, yes.
Because there were emerging concerns around health and safety and some other things, and people were a little embarrassed, which is really sad. But they were a little embarrassed to say, "Well, I'm you know, financing this stuff which sounds a little softer and fuzzier than I'm doing, you know, cancer research or I'm doing something in this space." We've got to, you know, and this goes to the question we talked about a while back. We have to have everybody understand that all of these things are on a par with each other. And if you don't, you can't pick and choose. And, you know, it's important that we do cancer research, but it's also important that we address all of these other concerns because it's integrated. You know, it's all part of the same whole and we're all here in the city together. And if we, you know, if we think that we can just parcel it out and sort of silo it, we're never going to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just point out, like a place like the Cleveland Clinic, they have art, music, dance every single day. They have recognized this as important to them, and they haven't stopped. So I think it's going to cut both ways. The philanthropy,
but just think about how hard it has been for the last year to do physical arts in the schools. It's been non-existent,
impossible.
You know, and that's such a huge thing is kids learning sort of the use of those kinds of tools early on. All right, Paul, one more question, I think, and then we'll turn it over to you guys to wrap it up.
All right, one more question. Let's see. Michelle is asking, is the idea behind steal like an artist and the quote artist theft applicable to entrepreneurs?
Well, for sure, for sure. I mean, you know, entrepreneurs would tell you, every single one would say it's far better to steal somebody's good idea than to come up with it yourself. I mean, let them make all the mistakes and then just go to school on their mistakes and go forward. Alex, you got anything to add to that?
Oh, that's actually exactly, that's my uncle, he started CineSpace 33 years ago, and he did all the mistakes, and we and we did it over here in 10.
All right, good. Well, that was a quickie. So do we have one more, Paul? And then we'll get Luke back on.
We sure do. So Lynn is asking, do you have specific rituals that nurture your creativity?
Kelly?
Yes, yeah, for sure. I'll do a group one and a personal one. So before every single Second City performance, before every Second City co-led workshop facilitation, we tap each other on the back or virtually do it and say, got your back. We've been doing this as long as I've been here, which is 32 years. It is not a minor ritual. It's an important ritual because it just the saying of it puts you in this space of, I am going to make my partner look good. That's my job. And they're here to save me. And that's how you improvise together, how you work without a script. And then that's just something that I think is important, because even though we're not in rooms together most of the time, we're in Zoom rooms, and that is a form of a room. So you can still do this gesture. And then personally for me, you know, it's interesting, we talked about earlier that poll of whether you've done something or not. And like, I did. At the beginning of lockdown, I made a point to myself of like, I am going to get in shape. And I haven't been in shape in 25 years. I've lost 45 pounds. My cholesterol is down. I did it. And the way I did it was all the habit books I read. I put my workout clothes on the stairs every night before I go to bed. And then I see them there and I do it. And I made it a practice, and I tied it to a cue I enjoy. And the cue I enjoy is that's where I listen to my favorite podcasts in the morning as well. So it's just like, and you just have to build these kinds of practices. And they don't come naturally, and they don't come because your brain is so powerful. It's going to say you have to tie it to stuff. And so it's in the same way that the cue of got your back is an expression of how we're going to exist in this space together. You can sort of like cue yourself to do a better activity.
I would just add, and I'm going to ask Jackie, but I mean, I have to write a column that goes out on Monday night and is published every Tuesday morning. I've done it for 8 years now, 50 weeks a year. And you know, you might think that doesn't sound very creative, but let me just tell you that rigor and that ritual kept me sane for some period of time during the pandemic. And it's really important to have these things to hold on to, and writing could not be harder. I mean, you know, people who say it's easy to write are nuts. But Jackie?
We have a ritual called We're One, where we start the one in some kind of musical tone or note, and it just goes around, and we continue it until we're all in harmony with each other as one.
Great. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to Luke because we're right on 4:59, sorry.
Thank you, Howard. And Howard, fantastic job leading today's session. And Kelly, Alex, Jackie, outstanding panel. Thank you for sharing some very eye-opening insights, advice, and great stories with our Chicago innovation community today. And also thank you for everything each of you are doing to keep the artistic spirit alive in Chicago during what, as you all know, and you very clearly articulated, has been an incredibly challenging year, both for artists and for the organizations that support them and give artists the platform to shine and to grow in our city. So we're all grateful for your resilience and hanging in there. And finally, I want to thank our great audience who tuned in and for being part of the Chicago innovation community. It's our 20th anniversary year of educating, connecting, and celebrating innovators. We have more events and programming planned this year than ever before. The next opportunity for us to all reconvene is on April 20th for a virtual event called Cash is Still King, and is focused on the almighty dollar and all the ways that growing companies should be thinking about accessing capital to fuel their growth in a post-COVID world. So stay tuned for that invitation in the coming days. And in the meantime, stay well, flex that artistic muscle however you can. I think it was about a third of you who said you're still working on that new talent. Maybe take something out of Kelly's book in terms of building a new habit. And we look forward to being with all of you again real soon. So thank you and have a good rest of the night.